Hello, Grammar Gumshoes, and welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live. I'm your humble host, English teacher and grammar detective Paul Duke, and I'm streaming to you live from Vancouver, Canada, to YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, and today, for the very first time, a brand new platform called Livespace. And I hope to be streaming more and more to Livespace as we go forward. On this weird little show, I answer your questions about the strange and mysterious nature of English grammar, and I hope solve these mysteries for you. And we will do that today. Today is devoted entirely to you and your questions. I've got a few questions left from last week that I'd like to clear up, and then we'll take some new questions. However, to get started, as usual, I'd love for you to say hello in the chat thread and tell me what country you're watching from. Already, I see Yunus from Morocco. I see Sleepwalker from Russia. I see Manly Oasis, but I forgot where you're from. I see Learn English with Mask Girl. Who else is here? I see Chris Derboven from Belgium. Great to have you with us. And I see somebody saying hello from Nepal, but when you're in a Facebook group, I cannot see your name. So please tell me your name if you're watching from a Facebook group. Who else is with us? I see M. Diagana, I'm not sure where you're from, but morning in West Coast and good evening to Asia, Europe, and Africa. Mohammed living in Seattle. Great. Welcome. So Seattle is in the same time zone as Vancouver, so it's 10 in the morning for Mohammed. Great to have you with us. I think I still have that question lined up, Jonas, but if you can ask it again in the chat box, that would help me a lot. But I think I've got it recorded. I want to say hello to Pallavi. We have Pallavi with us from India. No problem, Pallavi. Do your best on your exams, and you can watch this recording later. My friend in Nepal, Tirath, a fine English teacher in Nepal, doing good works, helping his students. Hope you're doing well, Tirath. Having a nice summer. We've also got with us NY. Okay, so on YouTube we have NY. Hello NY, Nauko, Brigitta, and Stephen. Hi guys, how are you? Nice to see you. Welcome to the show. And where are you guys watching from? There seems to be 3 of you. What country are you in? Who else is with us? Did I miss anyone? Pallavi, yes. Pallavi, please do your best on your exams. Study hard. You'll do fine. My friend Tirath, is this you also? Or is this someone else watching in Nepal? We have Emmanuel with us from Uganda. Welcome, Emmanuel. Nice to see you. Who else is with us? Okay. Well, for those of you who are new to the show, welcome. Just a little reminder that if you haven't already, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, because on that channel you can watch my writing podcast. Oops, where am I? You can watch my monthly writing podcast along with 2 other fine coaches. You can also find me and information about working with me on my website, hardboiledenglish.com. And on the YouTube channel, you can also see English Weirdness, my long-form series. So check that out. We'll get to your questions in just a minute, guys. Just want to make sure I've said hello to everyone. Learn English with Mask Girl says, Vancouver is famous for lumbering industry. Well, yes, there is lumbering industry here. We live in a city very close to forests, and historically, Vancouver has been a place of lumber industry. However, now it's very strong in tourism, tech, entertainment industry, lots of different things. Okay, Tira says, I'm in a professional development training in a beautiful city, Pokhara, for the last 5 days. Our educator is in Rustam, one of the educator from British Council. Great. Look forward to having you on the show again, Tirath, in the future. Maybe you can share some of the things you've learned. NY says, we're in Vancouver, Canada. Isn't that interesting? That's where I am. So Sleepwalker asks me, is it becoming a little colder there? No. It's still deep in the summer. We are still very hot here. I'm especially hot today because I'm in my hard-boiled English studio. There are studio lights here, computers, camera, everything produces heat, and the sun burns right into my window all day, so I'm a little hot. Now we're still in the summer here. Okay, guys, to get going, I want to ask you a question. And it's a simple question, but I want to give it some thought and share with the group here. I want to know what your hobby is. Okay, please type it in the chat box. Tell me what your hobby is. What is your hobby? Who wants to share their hobby? What is your hobby? Yeah. Mohammed is in Seattle, and Mohammed says, same weather in Washington State. Yeah, very much. We're in the same climatic region, and we share the same weather. So Sleepwalker says, my main hobby is to learn English. Now, this is a very interesting phrasing, Sleepwalker, because you say my main hobby is. Hobby is a noun. So if you say your hobby is, that means your hobby is a noun. So the name of your hobby should be in noun form. For example, my hobby is tennis, or my hobby is a gerund like eating. So you should actually say my main hobby is learning English or studying English, or just my main hobby is English. Because hobby is a noun, and remember the be verb is acts like an equal sign. So subject equals object, right? So for example, I, noun, am, verb, be verb, a teacher, that's a noun too. So when you say my hobby is, I want to see it in noun form. My hobby is noun. Yes, my hobby is learning English. So we're using the gerund which is a noun form. So Learn English with Mask Girl says, my hobby is learning English and playing badminton. And Y says, salsa dancing. That's great. Anyone else want to share their hobby? Reading and listening to music are my hobbies. Good. So you could also say reading and listening. You can also say books and music, two nouns. My hobbies are, according to Naeem, playing cricket, making friends, and learning English, and the stock market. Tirith, yes. Great to have Chris with us. You guys are viewers and fans of the show for a long time, probably since the beginning. Chris says, I collect animal art and I'm a metal detectorist and cat lover. Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, guys, anyone else want to share their hobbies? Because if not, it's time for some grammar. Okay. Anyone else? Now, Jonas is asking a question about the grammatical function of to in these sentences. I used to do, and I'm used to doing. The first two is infinitive, preposition followed by noun. Good, yes. Actually, today, one of the questions I'm going to answer is related to the preposition to. So we'll get to that in a minute, and I think you'll find your answer will be clear. Okay, guys, well, I guess it's time to get down to business, right? So, if you're ready, I think it's time to look at your grammar questions and get to the board and start breaking some down, right? Okay, let's look at the first question. Now, this is from one of our viewers last week, and I'll just get ready by getting out of my silly costume. So Salma asks, is it better to say fall or autumn? Well, the answer is really about this word better. Like, what do you mean by better? Is it better for your health? Is it better for the person listening to you to understand? What do we mean by better? That's really the question here. Because the words fall and autumn both refer to the same thing, the season that comes after summer, right? In that sense, both of these words mean the same thing, okay? The season that comes after summer, when the leaves change color and fall off the trees. What's the difference here? So if the question is, what is the difference? The difference is autumn is the actual name for that season, right? Winter, spring, summer, autumn. Fall is a little more informal, a little more slangy. And in fact, it's mostly used in North America. So the USA and Canada, we say fall casually, okay? What's nice about the word fall and why it kind of fits North American English is that it's one syllable. North American English tends to be a little more direct and simple than, say, British English. Autumn is two syllables. So which one's easier to say? Which one comes out of our mouths quicker and smoother? I would say fall. Fall, easier to say. Autumn. Autumn is the actual word, the more formal term for that season. So it's a question of formality, not better. If you're talking to your friends, you could use either word, but you could certainly use fall. However, if you're writing a scientific paper about climate and weather and seasons, you probably want to use autumn. So when we say better, we have to think about what that means. In the case here, the meaning is the same. It's pointing to the same season, right? So it doesn't really matter which word you use. We will understand the season you're talking about. So the question is, what's the context? What's the situation? Well, if it's formal, use autumn. If it's casual, use fall. And if you're outside of North America, let's say the UK, Australia, or around the world, if you use fall, somebody might not understand you. They may not have heard that term. It's really North American. Having said that, the US media and movies and music does spread North American English around the world. So you may be exposed to this, okay? So hopefully that answers your question. Let me just get the next question. So this is from Nelson. Nelson asked, what's the difference between up to and until? Well, when we use these expressions, we're talking about time, right? We're talking about time. So let's make a little timeline here. We have the future, the past, and the present. And we might say something like, you can watch this show until 11 a.m. So let's say we started at 10 a.m. and right now it's about, I don't know, 10:15. And at 11, the show will be over. So you can watch. Watch is the verb. You can watch until 11 a.m. Until. It's true here, it's true here, it's true here, it's true here, but it's no longer true after 11. The show finishes. That's what until means. Until a specific time, this verb is true. Okay, you can do this action. Or this clause is true. Now, some people might substitute up to 11 a.m. in a sort of informal way, and people would understand you. But I would say up to is better used for measurements, okay? Because up, the preposition, points upward, right? So let's say we have measurements from 0 to 10, and let's say we have liters. We're measuring liters. So let's say we have a cup, right? And something like this, a measuring cup of water. And I tell someone, fill it up to 400 milliliters. Up to that measurement, no further. Okay? One of the reasons we use the preposition up is because when we measure things like water in a cup, it's going vertically. And we kind of take that idea and metaphorically project it onto other kinds of measurements. For example, if you're saving money. Now, you don't save money vertically, but we can think of it the same way. We can think of my bank account piling up. So you can say, I want to save money up to $1 million. Now, nowadays banking is all digital, so it's not really going up, but we can imagine a pile of money going up, right? So I would say, some people might say this when we're talking about time, but it's a better and more officially used with measurements, okay? Measurements. Even when you go to the coffee shop, you might say, fill my cup up to the top. Up to the top, okay? Up to. Now, this kind of brings us to our next questions. So this is Sleepwalker's question. I'm just going to clear the board, guys. Now, Sleepwalker is asking about pronouns. And as you know, pronouns replace nouns. So let's just remind ourselves what a pronoun is. Well, we might say something like, Paul is a teacher, okay? And then the next sentence, because we're still talking about Paul, we could say Paul is a teacher, Paul is a Canadian. But in English, we don't really like to repeat things if we can avoid it, okay? Repetition has a valuable purpose when we want to emphasize something, but in general, we want to avoid it. So we can substitute this with a pronoun. He. He is a Canadian. Okay, that's a pronoun. So Sleepwalker's asking, is there any case where we cannot use two, or let's say 3 or 4 or 5 pronouns in a sentence? Is there a rule? Well, the answer is no, because there's no rule about how many nouns you can use. There isn't even a rule about how long your sentence can be. A sentence can be 1, 2, 3, 4 words, or it can be 4,000. Now, a 4,000 word sentence is probably rare, but it's possible, okay? Some authors like to do experimental writing, and they may try to make a sentence super long. You could make a sentence that's 1 book long. I'm sure it's probably been done. So there is no rule about how many you can use. The problem is, he is clearly talking about Paul because that's the last person you mentioned. But if you start mentioning other people and you're still saying he, it could be confusing, right? So he is a Canadian. Let's say Bob likes soccer. Okay? He plays too. He plays too with Paul. He eats pizza before the game. Okay? Bob likes soccer. He plays too with Paul. He eats pizza before the game. Who's he? Because they both play soccer in the game. So which boy are we talking about? He. Right? So there's no rule about how many pronouns you can use, but you have to be careful that it's clear to the reader or the listener who you're referring to. Okay? And you can say he, you can say it, you can say there. There's lots of different pronouns that you can put in. You could put they when you're talking about Paul and Bob, for example. Okay? Let me just catch up on a couple of greetings here. What is my hobby? Well, my hobby is this live stream because this isn't my job. Nobody's paying me to do this. I do this every Friday because it's fun and I like to connect with you guys and help you out with your grammar. So it's my hobby. But I also listen to music. I like to exercise. I like to eat food. I like to read. I like to write. A lot of hobbies. I like to travel. Listening to music, my favorite music is like rap and R&B. Like rap or rap? You don't really like rap, you sort of like rap? Or you like your favorite music is rap? You don't need like here, I think, if your music is rap. In America, we use fall, exactly, yeah. Autumn is generally understood. It should be because it's actually the word for that season. Okay, we have Marta with us from Greece. Welcome to the show, Marta. Oh, Sleepwalker, that's very kind of you to say. Thank you. We also have Lila with us. Hi, Lila. Okay, we also have Uruj Mohsen with us. How could I get fluency in English speaking? Good question. There are a lot of things you can do. But it's important to also remember the difference between fluency and proficiency, right? Hello to Berta from Colombia. Welcome, Berta. Nice to see you. Mohammed's from Iran. Welcome. So the question here is, how can I get fluency? Not could. Could doesn't work here. You should say, how can I get fluency? Well, you can study, you can practice, you can read, you can write. Fluency is the ability to produce without hesitation, without stops or delays. Right now I'm speaking fluently. My ideas and my words are coming out. That's fluency. But if you're fluent, but your grammar is terrible and your vocabulary is limited, that's not proficient. So fluency is how freely and how much you can produce of a language. Okay? But I think it's also important to think about proficiency, which is how accurate your communication is. So I think fluency is a good goal, but also proficiency should be your goal. Because if you speak quickly and it's terrible grammar, you're communicating nonsense. You don't want to do that. So I think we have to think about fluency and proficiency. So how do you get fluency? You have to practice. Okay, you have to listen, you have to read, you have to write, you have to study, but above all, you have to speak and you have to write. So you have to produce. The production of a language is how you output it, right? So writing and speaking. At some point you have to practice that, and that will get you more and more fluent. But, as I said, you also want to speak accurately and write accurately so that the other person who reads or listens to you understands you. That's proficiency. So fluency is important, and like a sport, being able to freely play a sport like tennis, you have to practice. How to practice? Well, that's different for everyone. If you're in a place where you can speak English with someone, do that, right? Get online, make friends, practice. Kind of music I like is rap or something like rap. Okay, so what would be something like rap? Because if someone is rapping, then the music is rap. Tirith has a question here. My students often ask me to tag questions of a sentence beginning with let's and let us, and they ask me the explanation why. Okay, Tirith, what do you mean? Why we use let's or let us? What's the difference there? Or do you mean why use it at all? Can you just clarify that and then I'll answer it? Okay, this is interesting, guys. I know that sometimes people call each other dear in different countries, but let me just share something with you. In North American English, UK English, Australia, basically in Western cultures, dear is reserved for someone very, very close to you, like your romantic partner, your mother or your father. Calling a stranger dear is a little bit intimate. So this seems a little bit weird because I've never met you, right? So it might be better to say, thank you, my friend, thank you, sir, thank you, Paul, right? Thank you, teacher, or just thank you. Okay, Tirith, what do you think about this? I just want to know, the question is, why we use let us, or why we use let us, or let's, which one do we use, or why use any of them? Which is the question? I'll just put a couple of... Do you see what I mean, Tirith? Are you asking me what's the difference, or are you asking me why do we use this at all? Let me start explaining it one way. Guys, I think what's happening here is this is how we might suggest doing something, okay? Now there's two ways to think about this. One way, you and your friends are together and you have an idea to go to the park and you want everyone to go to the park. Now you could just say, go to the park to your friends. Go to the park, right? There's your verb and there's your object or prepositional phrase. Go to the park. Okay, Paul, sure. And then they go to the park. But that's imperative structure, starting with the verb, which is when you give an order or a command. Well, that's okay if you're an army general or the boss at work or your wife or husband. Hopefully don't usually talk to you that way. But if you're with friends, you don't really have the power to tell them go to the park. Plus, if you say go to the park, they're going to the park, you're not. You're telling them to leave and go to the park. But if you want to include yourself, this expression includes you. Let us go to the park. What does the verb let mean? The verb let means allow, permit. So you're basically saying, permit us to go to the park. Allow us to go to the park. So it's a polite way to suggest to your friends. Because your friends have to say yes for everyone to go to the park. Your friends have to agree, and that agreeing becomes permission. So let us, let's means the same thing, it's just contracted. Let us. It just means allow us to go to the park. What do you think? Yeah, Paul, great idea. Let's go. Right? It's an expression that means a suggestion. Okay? Tirith, I hope that answers your question. And I do have a couple of questions to get to still. Jonas says, I consider rap is one of the Western kinds of music. So other kinds like R&B and blues are close to rap. Okay, well, you're right. It is Western. In fact, it's specifically American. Rap music began in the Bronx, New York City, in the late 70s, early 1980s, when I was a teenager. R&B and blues originate in the southern U.S. But interestingly, rap music did not start with instruments. Rap music was originally an MC rapping and a DJ playing old records to make a beat. Nowadays, they might use it, everything's sort of mixed together, and R&B and blues do combine things. But rap specifically refers to the vocal style of sort of speaking lyrics. Yeah, so rap, R&B, and blues are all related. They all come out of African American culture, as compared to your local music, for sure. Naeem says, the Winter Olympics were held in Vancouver. In Vancouver in 2000. They were, actually, yes. That's right. But I want to go back to this question, Tirith. Hopefully I answered that. Let us, why do we use it? It's a polite way to suggest to your friends, let us, allow us to go to the park, but you need their permission, you need their agreement before everyone's allowed to go to the park, right? You have to agree to do something as a group. So us is the group. The verb let means permit us, right? It's your idea, it's your suggestion. Hey, let's go to the park. I have an idea. Let's go to the park. But you need your friends to agree in order for everyone to go. It's better than saying go to the park, which is an order. It's not really good to order people around. Okay, let's see what else we have here. I have an outstanding question. Okay. Again, I'll clear the board quickly. And then we'll get to this question. I think I have two questions here. So it's time, it's high time, it's about time. Why we use verb in second form? Now, I'm not really sure what you mean by second form. Can you clarify this? Mask Girl? Is Mask Girl still with us? Yes, traits are usually referring to personality characteristics, behavior characteristics. It's kind of a psychological term, right? Psychology is the science of human behavior. So people show personality traits. A child might be shy, a child might be outgoing, a child might laugh easily, a child might never laugh, right? And we grow up to be adults who do similar things. So those are traits. Features, yeah, features usually describes appearance, right? One of my features is I'm bald. By the way, a lot of people are bald these days, but I've been bald since 1986. back in the day when nobody was bald except me. I'm kind of proud of that, actually. Okay, I'm going to go back to another question that's outstanding. Mask girl, are you with us? It's time, it's high time, it's about time. Why do we use verb's second form? The verb here is, the be verb. It is, and it is singular. Well, if mask girl is not with us, maybe I'll save it until we see her again. Let is, I don't think that's used. Let is go to the park. This doesn't make sense, Tirith, because we have two verbs side by side, base form. Let us gives us a subject, verb subject. So I've never heard that used, to be honest with you, Tirith. Let's go or let us go, not let is. I would be, now, never say never, but in my opinion, this doesn't exist in English. This is not English. Let is. Okay, so shall we is an alternative. Let's say, let's go to the park. Let's go to the park. So that's a suggestion. That's a statement. Let us go to the park. If we're strict about it, it is imperative. Verb, subject, and so on. Okay? So you're suggesting something strongly. Let us go to the park. However, the verb isn't like go to the park. The verb is let. So permit us. But you can reframe this as a question. Shall we go to the park? That's a question. And shall basically means should. Okay? I use shall to ask a question often, right? Shall we go to the park? Should we? Is it a good idea? Is it good advice to go to the park? This might be used here if you've already discussed the park as one of your choices. We could go to the park. We can also go to the mall, or we can go to the ice cream store. But now people are starting to think, yeah, the park sounds good. So when it's time, you might say, shall we go to the park? Yeah, let's. Right? Let's go to the park. So shall is gives you the question structure. Shall we go to the park? Should we go to the park? Right? Because this is a modal, subject, verb. So that's a question. This is just a statement. This is an imperative statement of suggestion. And again, let is, I think that doesn't exist. I think that's an error. Oh, I see what you mean by second form. I don't call it second form, I call it past tense. Right? Go is the present, simple present. Went is past tense, and gone is the past participle. So I don't call these first, second, and third form. That's one way to remember them, but the second form you're talking about then is past tense. Okay? Mask girl. But that means, let's have a look here. Let's see your example. So your example are, it's high time, it's time, it's about time. And your question is, why are we using the verb in second form? We're not. This is the verb is. Paul is a teacher. According to your system of first, second, third form, that's first form. That's not past tense. Past tense of is was. Right? And the past participle is been. So first, second, third form. Present, past, past participle. So this is using present. It's not using second form. Second form would be was. It's using is. Hopefully that answers that question. Good. Yeah, this is great. Let's buy something to eat, shall we? And that's another way of saying, shall we buy something to eat? So this just adds a little emphasis. Good. I'm not sure I understand this, Tirith. Can you write me the complete sentence, including punctuation? Why we use the tag question of the sentence, let's? I need an example. I need the full sentence. Okay, well, what's the question here? Guys, if you're asking me a question, I need you to write a question structure. I can't read your minds. Is this what you're talking about, Tirith? Let's buy something to eat, shall we? Now, you don't have to say that. You can just say, let's buy something to eat. Or, shall we buy something to eat? But you can add the shall we as just sort of an extra emphasis. So, Tirith, please, if you can, clear this up for me. I'm kind of jumping around questions here because of the time delay. Jonas, I haven't forgotten your question. I just think your question requires a bit of time, so I'm saving it until a bit later. I want to get through some of these shorter questions first, but I have it waiting. It's all set up right here. Yeah. But I want to make sure I answer these questions. Okay, so let me see if I get this. So the question here is, it's time, it's high time, it's about time. Why we use verbs in second form, past tense, right? And I thought you meant the verb be, is, because that's the only verb I see here. That's why I need you guys to ask me a full question, a full sentence. Which verb are you talking about here? But if And again, this is not a question, it's an example. So I still have to infer your question. But I think what you're asking is about this verb, the second verb in this sentence, right? That's the one you're asking about. Okay. Like this, or it's high time. Sorry guys, high time. We bought a new car. Okay, so let's break this down into the parts as we usually do and see what we have. Subject and verb, as I said, and then we have the object. What's this is really the question, because that's a subject and that's a verb. So we have two clauses here, and I want to suggest that this is actually an adjective clause or a relative clause. Okay, it's a clause because it has a subject and a verb. It's an adjective clause because it's describing the noun time. Okay? It's telling us what time it is. Why do we use past tense instead of, let's say, base form? Well, the truth is you can use that if you want. It's possible. A lot of people do. Right? And down here, what do we have? Subject, verb, high time. Let's call this our object. And then again, we have a subject, verb, and here we have an object. And again, I want to suggest that this is an adjective clause because it describes time. It tells us what time it is. What kind of time. So the question is, why do we use that in past tense, right? Bought, studied. Because if we think about this sentence and a timeline, we're talking about it is high time now, right? The present. It is time, high time now. It's time now that something was true, right? It's time now that we bought a new car in the past. Now, did we buy a new car? No. We're driving an old car. And this sentence is a way of complaining about this car. It's old, it's garbage, it doesn't move very quickly. I want a Ferrari. Right now, it's time that I wish I had already bought my Ferrari. So this kind of sentence isn't saying, I want to buy a new car in the future. That's not the meaning. The meaning is you're complaining that right now it should be true that you already bought a car. Or let's say in the present, your mother walks into your room and you're flipping on TikTok, but you should be studying. And your mother says, it's time you studied. So what she's saying is that right now, you should already have been studying for a while. You should already have started studying earlier, but you're not. You're playing on TikTok. So the reason it's past tense is because this is an expression that's complaining about the present. It's complaining about the truth of the present. The present is, you're not studying. The present is, I don't have a new car. So it's a way of complaining that right now, the present, should be a time when I have a new car and you are studying, but you're not. So we're complaining about a present that isn't true. We're complaining about something that should have happened in the past. We should have bought a car and we should have started studying, right? So that's why we need the past tense, because this is complaining about the present. It's high time we bought a new car. This one is garbage, right? It's a way of saying the current present of me with this car is not good. We should have bought a car. Your mother walks in and sees you on TikTok. This present is not good. You have an exam tomorrow. You should have studied already. You should have started in the past, but you didn't. Okay, so that's what we're expressing with that. Yeah, it's time you studied. Right now you're not studying. And your mother sees you on TikTok. Your mother's angry. That's what she's communicating with this. It's time you studied. But you're not. So she's saying you should have already studied. You should have already started. Have studied. Have started. So this is borrowing the past participle from present perfect, which looks like that on a timeline, right? Present perfect is when an action starts in the past, continues until now. Okay, so that's why we need the past tense there. Because it's a way of communicating that the current present shouldn't be like this. I shouldn't be driving a bad car, and you shouldn't be on TikTok. Okay, I'm going to start with Jonas's question before we run out of time. We may have to go a little overtime for this, but I think I can answer this pretty succinctly. Okay, Mask Girl, I hope I answered your question here. I think this is what you're asking about. A boot, which is what Americans think us Canadians say. A boot. Hopefully I don't sound like that. Let's talk about grammar. Do I say that, guys? Let's talk about grammar. I think I don't say that. Maybe some Canadians do, but I don't think I do. Okay. So Jonas asked me a question. So let me just, sorry, Jonas. Just want to make sure I've covered. I still think I don't understand your question, Tireth. I'm sorry. Maybe you and I can meet in private and clarify that. No problem, Chris. I understand. This is not the perfect time for you. Thanks. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Tireth, here we go. Okay, so in this example, let's go to the park, shall we? It's like the one I think Naeem gave us. Let's go to the park suggests going to the park. Shall we is asking if it's a good idea. Should we? Shall we? Okay. Now, you don't have to use this. So if you have a textbook that says you have to use this at the end, you don't. That's not true. You can just say, hey guys, let's go to the park. Period. Or, shall we go to the park? Now, tag questions do what? They allow you to make a statement, let's go to the park, and then add a question. When you add the question, it means you're not entirely sure about this, right? So adding this tag question might make it a little gentler, a little more friendly, like, let's go to the park, shall we? Right? It's kind of confirming. But you do not have to use this. That's not true. You can just say, let's go to the park. Or you can say, shall we go to the park? There's no rule that says you have to use this. That's not true. As for this one, this doesn't seem like correct English to me. Let us go to the park. Will you? No, that doesn't work. So if you have a textbook that's telling you to do this, Tirith, I would say that textbook is wrong. I never hear someone say this. I've never heard this. And grammatically, it doesn't make any sense to me. Let us go to the park. Will you? Unless you're talking to the group. Hey, let's go to the park, guys. And then you turn and ask the other person, will you? You're basically doing two things. You're making a statement suggesting, let's go to the park. And then you're turning to your friend and saying, will you go to the park with us? Because you think maybe this friend doesn't want to go to the park. So you could do that. Hey guys, let's go to the park. How about you? Will you go? Will you? Otherwise, you don't need this. Otherwise, there's no reason to use this. And if you have a textbook telling you to do this, I'd say ignore it. It's nonsense. There's no rule that says you have to do that. It sounds very strange, to be quite frank with you. Okay, Jonas is obsessed with two. Let's go to his question. Okay. So this is a very common question. Just let me get a drink of water here, guys, because this comes up all the time. Okay. I've answered this question probably a dozen times on this show over the years, but I'm happy to answer it again. Prepositions, but specifically the preposition to. Okay. What do prepositions do? It's a question for you guys. Those of you who watch this show should know what I told you many times, what I have told you many times about what a preposition is. So in the chat box, tell me what a preposition is and what they do in a sentence. Go. What's a preposition and what do they do in a sentence? You tell me quickly. And I'll get ready with this sentence. And I'll borrow Tireth's sentence. Okay, Jonas. Prepositions are followed by nouns. Good. That's one thing. What else can we say about them? The word preposition tells us exactly that. Pre. Pre means before. Before position. Before noun position. That's what a preposition does. Well, that's what it is. Okay, it's a preposition. What else? What do they do? What function do they do? Let's go to the park. Jonas flew to Brazil. I want to fly. Okay, to. These are the examples I want to use. Does anyone else know what a preposition is and what they do? If so, please tell me. So far we have Jonas saying prepositions are followed by noun. Yes, they are. Let's start identifying the parts here. We have a verb, subject, verb, prep, noun. Here we have subject, verb, noun, subject, verb, verb. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's go to the park. Park is a noun, and let's include the article the. It's part of the noun, basically. To is the preposition. It's before the noun. It's pre-noun position. Down here, Jonas flew to Brazil. Brazil is the noun. To comes before the noun. So far, so good. Okay, good. So you guys are on the right track. Prepositions come before nouns. Their job is to connect nouns grammatically. And they can connect them to other nouns, right? Pen, pens, in, cup. Paul, on, screen. Noun, noun. And they also express meanings. To is different than for, is different than with, is different than above. Okay, there's a relationship here. When we talk about in cup, it's describing a relationship in space, three-dimensional space, Jonas, right? In the cup, above the cup, below the cup, in front of the cup, behind the cup. But their job grammatically is to connect nouns to other words, to other nouns, to other verbs, but they connect nouns to other parts of the sentence and express some idea. Okay, but we're not talking about all prepositions on this show. We're going to have a preposition show soon with my friend, teacher Pedro from Brazil. Let's talk about to. And to is the most confusing preposition because it connects nouns. That follows with preposition rule. But it also tends to connect verbs and make the infinitive verb. And students go, what the hell's going on? There's a rule, they connect nouns, but then there's a broken rule, they work with verbs. One thing to remember, if it's with the verb, it's not a preposition anymore. It's part of the infinitive. Together, they make the infinitive verb. Without it, you have base form verb. So infinitive verb means a verb with no tense. It's out there in infinite time. Infinitive, infinity, timeless. So infinitive verbs express an action, but they don't express an action in time. They express an action idea. Not a preposition anymore. Now it's part of the infinitive verb. So your question is, when do we use preposition to? Right? How to know if an infinitive or a noun comes after a verb with to? Okay, so the question is what comes before these? In both cases, we have verbs, and then we have noun, and we have infinitive verb. Let's talk about when we use preposition to in front of a noun. What does it communicate? Okay, it connects a noun, it's before the noun, basic definition, but they also express something. What is this expressing? It's expressing destination. When an object moves, when a noun moves, it moves. Think about this. This is logic, not grammar. When an object moves, it moves from one noun, one place, to another place. It could be far away, from Canada to Brazil. It could be a very short distance, from my right hand to my left hand. Hands are nouns, countries are nouns. So when an object, a noun, moves from one place, places are always nouns. Brazil, my house, your store, your school, those are all nouns. When a noun moves from one place of origin to another place of destination, we use to. To connects the destination. We don't always say it, but it's implied. From here, my home, to the park. If you're suggesting to your friends to go to the park, they're all in the room with you. Maybe you're all at school. So you don't need to say, hey guys, let's go from the school to the park. They're already at the school. They all know where the place of origin is. So you don't need to say the place of origin. You can just say the place of destination. Hey guys, let's go to the park. No one's going to say, from where? Dude, from here, from the school. So often you don't hear the from, because the unknown is the destination. but you're connecting them. It's implied from the school to the destination. Maybe you're at home and you ask your mother, Mother, can I go to the store? Your mother's not going to say from where, because you're in the house with her together. She knows where from. So let's summarize this point. To connects the destination when an object moves from one place to another. So that tells us something. We need a verb of movement. The most common is go. Another common one would be flew, fly, or drive, or walk, or run. So I'm going to erase this for a second, guys. We can say subject, verb of movement. Plus from noun to noun. And we'll call this noun of origin to noun of destination. And we're talking about movement verbs. Go, past tense too, went, fly, walk, run, drive. Even smaller ones like give. I will give this pen to you. When you give something, you move it or transfer it. So we can also say verbs of transfer. Because sometimes you don't actually physically move something. For example, if you buy a car or a home, the bank just transfers money, digital information, from one account to another. So it's not physically moving, but it's transferring. So whatever movement verb you can think of, travel, rode the bus to school, rode the bike to school, any verb that expresses movement, that is related to a noun that moves from one place to another. So when do we use to plus noun? Easy, when you have a verb of movement or transfer. Or even change, right? Think about a child grows up to adulthood. Well, they're not moving, but their body is stretching and growing. It's changing, and change is a kind of movement. So a lot of this depends on the verb. If you have a verb of movement, for example, go, something is going from one place to another. So to connects the destination, okay? So far, so good, Jonas? Movement verb plus from and the noun of origin. Sometimes, don't always need it. But this connects the destination. But that happens when you use a verb of movement. But go, for example. Even idiom expressions like, or collocations like listen to. I like to listen to music. They're always together. Why? What's moving? Think about it. Music moves in sound waves from the stereo to your ear. My teacher talked to me. Paul talked to us on screen. His words moved from his mouth to your ears, right? So we can even put talk here. Speak, right? Listen. These are verbs where something is moving. And if something is moving, it's moving from one place to another most of the time. You can also, I could say like, I'm dancing in my room. That's not really expressing that I'm moving from one place to another. It's expressing that I'm moving in one position inside something. Okay, now let's talk about the infinitive. So when do we use it to connect a noun? When you have a verb of movement or transfer or change and you're connecting the destination. Right? Think about it. Let's go. Let's go where? To Brazil. Let's walk to the store. Let's ride the bus to school. I wish I could fly to the moon. All of those are destinations. Okay, what about the infinitive? First of all, what is an infinitive verb? An infinitive verb is a verb of action, but it's expressing the idea of the action. It's not expressing the action in time, right? In a sentence, you have a main verb, subject plus verb. That's the main part of the clause. And that verb has a job to do, which is to express tense. Let's look at this sentence. Because your question, Jonas, was how do we know when to use that to connect the noun or to connect the infinitive verb? When we connect the noun, it's the noun of destination, right? And that depends on a verb of movement. Is that a verb of movement? I want. It's not even an action. Nothing's moving. I want. Watch me closely. I want to play. Am I moving? Do you guys see the action of me wanting? How about this one? I know how to speak French. I know it. Can you see me knowing? No, these are not actions. These are like state verbs, right? So there's no verb of movement. So if you see a to and then a verb, you know that that's the infinitive verb. To play. Because want is not an action, and it's definitely not an action of movement. Okay? Now you're going to say, oh, what about a movement verb like I went to play soccer. That's a movement verb, Paul, and I hear people say that. Yes, but there's something missing. There's something implied. I went to the park. So if you told your mother says, where did you go? Why did you go? I went to play soccer. You're telling them the reason you went. She already knows where you went. So you don't have to say the destination. It's implied. But it's hiding inside that grammar. I went to the park. Why? So this infinitive verb doesn't connect destination, it connects reason. And oftentimes we use infinitive verb to express reason. I came to Canada. Why? To study English. I came to Canada to study English. Okay? I read books. Why? To enjoy stories. I eat food. Why? To get nutrition. I visit my friend. Why? To talk with him. Okay? So, let's not get these confused. How do you know if it's to plus noun or to plus verb? Go back to the original verb, the main verb, which I said it has a job which is to communicate tense. I want, I wanted, I have wanted, right? Present, simple past, present perfect, it doesn't matter. You can still use the infinitive verb. This verb expresses time in tense, not this one. The infinitive verb is infinitive, meaning the same in science and math. It's infinity. It's got no relationship or expression of time. I want to play. I wanted to play. I have wanted to play for many years. This is expressing the idea of action. This is expressing this is the main verb. So this is expressing the tensed action. So Jonas, when you're deciding what to come after the verb, first of all, you have to know what you're expressing with the verb. If you're using a verb like want, it could be an infinitive verb after it. Because of the nature of the verb, let's look at another example. I want. You know, in a sentence, every word's important. And it's important to understand the meaning of words. What does it mean to want? What does it mean to want? Think about the reality, life, of what that expresses. I want. Well, in your own life, I'm sure you know, you can want objects, right? You can want, I don't know, let's say you can want a hard-boiled English grammar detective coffee mug, right? You can want physical objects. You can want nouns. I want new pens. Want a Ferrari. So because of the meaning of the verb want, in real life we know that we can want nouns, but we can also want to do things. I want to study. I want to cool off, right? I want to swim. I want to have a shower, okay? We can want to do actions. Now, not every verb can work like this. It depends on the meaning. What does it mean to want something? You can want nouns, and you can want to do actions, which means you can want infinitive verbs, to plus verb. So how do you know? If you have a verb like want, and you have a noun after it, there's no preposition, because you want that object. So this is a transitive meaning. I want direct object. The last expression of to plus destination, the verb was expressing of movement from noun of origin to noun of destination. Okay, hopefully, Jonas, that clears that up. I'm going to have to close up in a minute, but let's go back to something. Prepositions to, into, and until sometimes, I would say to and until are interchangeable, but compound prepositions, into, onto, upon, etc., they're actually made of two prepositions, in and to, on and to, up and on. So they're connecting two meanings together. So for example, right now these pens are in the cup, just in. They're not into the cup, they're just in. They're stationary. But if I add a verb of movement, for example, I will put is a verb of movement, or let's say I will insert, that's a verb of movement. You insert from one place to another. I will insert this pen from my hand to the cup, and then at the cup, it's going to go in the cup. It's going to have two movements, two actions to connect. The place of destination is the cup, to plus cup, and the final position is in. So now I'm going to put the pen from here to the cup and then in the cup. So there's two connections there. Or let's say, let's get into the car. To be in the car, you have to move from the sidewalk to the car and then in. That's why we use into. So we don't have to have all those words in the sentence. We can just say, hey, get into the car. That implies the movement from one place to the car and then in the car. Okay? Okay, I'll quickly cover this, and then I'm going to have to say goodbye, guys. But this continues the idea here. I used to play soccer when I was a child. Okay, what are you saying with this? You're saying, in the past, this was a common action. I used to play soccer. Now, teachers and schools often teach you this expression, used to. I don't think that's useful because it implies that the to belongs to the verb used. It doesn't. It belongs to the infinitive verb. So, really, you should teach these as two parts. I used. I used means I utilized or I did something in the past. In this case, you did this action in the past. And the idea of the word used is that you did this often. Okay? It becomes a longer expression, used to plus verb. But I think you have to understand that the to belongs to the infinitive. It doesn't belong to the main verb. I think that's confusing. It also gets confusing when you have this expression. Right? Subject, verb. Now this is a preposition, and this is a noun. Swimming or her. Now that's a preposition. Used to. In this case, I am used means familiarity. Let's say studying is a better one than swimming. I'm used to studying every day. I'm used to it. I'm comfortable with it. I'm familiar with it. This is a very different meaning, right? And this to is connecting a noun. So I see why these are confusing. They are very confusing, like a lot of features of English, right? Hopefully that distinguishes the two of them. Now, I didn't mention it earlier. I would say 90% of the time when we use to, it's plus destination. We can also use it in a slight nuance, which is relationship, like I am related to her. I'm related to my sister. Related to plus noun. In a way, that still fits movement or transfer or change, but it's expressing relationship, right? Or belonging. I belong to the club. Still it's connecting a noun, but it's expressing belonging to or related to, which, how did you become related to? How did you become a member of the club? You moved from not member status to member status. You changed, right? You paid membership and became a member of the club. So you joined the club. So you moved from a different situation to a new situation. Same with my sister. At birth, my status changed. I became related to. So it still kind of works in that sense. Pallavi is always concerned about my health and my comfort. I thank you, Pallavi. That's lovely of you. I think Pallavi knows that in January I had a serious knee surgery. Thank you, Pallavi. I am doing very well now. So thank you for concerning. I'm standing quite comfortably, but it is getting hot in here, right? It's time for me to think about going. I'm used to my girlfriend's bad behavior. Yes, exactly. I went to Morocco. Went is the past tense of go. Went to. Used to. Okay, Jonas, I hope that answers your question. It's a simplistic answer. I know there are a lot of ins and outs with this stuff. Just to remind you, I'm planning a full show of preposition discussion in a few weeks, actually first week of September, I think, with teacher Pedro from Brazil, because students in Brazil that he teaches really struggle with prepositions. So we're going to do a full show of preposition issues. So we'll talk about this more. But what I told you today is basically 90% of the issue, right? Look at the verb. If it's a verb of movement, change, or transfer, you're transferring from one noun to a noun of destination. That's when you use to plus noun. And if the verb isn't expressing movement, like want, it could be an infinitive verb or a noun with no preposition. One of the biggest topics in English grammar is verb transitivity. And unfortunately, a lot of schools neglect to teach this. A lot of textbooks neglect teaching this. It's so important because it affects other parts of the sentence. It affects the preposition. It affects what comes after it, object, noun, or infinitive. So if you haven't already, guys, I suggest you watch my 2-part episode of English Weirdness. I'm going to put the link here because it's all about verb transitivity. And so many of your questions, although they might seem to be related to prepositions, they're also related to verb transitivity, because verb transitivity determines what comes after the verb, right? If it's a transitive verb, what comes after it? It has to be a noun. Can't be a preposition. It has to be a noun. I want pizza, right? I kicked the ball. That's a transitive verb. Can't have a preposition. If it's an intransitive verb, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can come after it, including infinitive verbs. So please check out that video. It's the first video of 2 parts. I think it's essential for all of my students to watch because verb transitivity affects so much. So watch my series English Weirdness. It goes into that. The link is there for that episode, episode 9. You know, these are 30-minute episodes, so dig in and take notes. A lot of information there, but I think it's something everyone needs to learn. Everyone needs to learn about verb transitivity. It's essential. Well, guys, I think it's time to say goodbye. We're a little overtime today, and I am starting to melt. So I think we can say that hopefully all of those questions, case closed. So let's wrap up things. I want to say thank you to everyone for watching. Hopefully I didn't miss your questions. If there's any questions I missed, I will check them out and we'll get to them next week. Okay? Thank you guys for joining me. It's been a pleasure to help you with your grammar. We've got to keep learning this stuff. It's tricky. Okay? So until next week, guys, take care, stay healthy, and as always, stay cool. Thanks for watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hard Boiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.